The laughter struck her before she even rounded the corner. A ripple of snickers and whispers swelled in the narrow school hallway, rising like a wave meant to drown her. "Nice jacket," one boy muttered under his breath, the words sharp enough to pierce. Her fingers tightened around the frayed cuffs, the fabric cool beneath her touch. The jacket hung heavy on her small frame, sleeves too long, shoulders broad enough to belong to someone twice her size. On the left breast, a patch glinted faintly under the fluorescent lights, a golden emblem, worn at the edges but still proud. She kept walking. On either side, students pressed against the lockers, their voices a mix of mockery and curiosity. She could feel their eyes trailing over every threadbare seam, judging, dismissing, smirking. Then, halfway down the hall, he appeared. A tall man, in immaculate army dress, blues, ribbons and medals catching the light. His posture was unyielding, every inch of him carved from discipline. His gaze swept the hallway with a soldier's precision until it landed on her. And then, he froze. The world seemed to pause with him. Conversations cut short. Even the hum of the ceiling lights felt quieter. His eyes weren't on her face, but on the patch stitched over her heart. She didn't know it yet, but that moment the silent recognition between a decorated officer and a girl in an oversized jacket would turn the hallway into a place no one would forget. Her name was Emma Reyes, 13 years old, quiet, with a gaze that seemed to carry more years than she had lived. She had inherited the jacket from her father, Master Sergeant Daniel Reyes, who never came home from his last deployment. The fabric smelled faintly of cedar from the closet where it had hung for years, untouched, until the morning she decided she couldn't leave it there any longer. The school had a strict dress code, but Emma had long since stopped caring about rules that didn't account for grief. The jacket was heavy, lined with memory. Every crease spoke of sandstorms, in places she'd never been. Every faint stain hinted at nights her father spent far from safety, under skies full of foreign stars. She wore it because it was the closest she could get to an embrace that no longer existed. But the other kids only saw an old, oversized coat. They didn't see the man who once filled it, or the silent battles he fought. The mocking had started the moment she walked through the school doors that morning. "Looks like she stole it from a thrift store. Why is she dressed like an old man?" Someone coughed the word hobo, just loud enough for her to hear. She kept her eyes on the floor, counting the scuff marks on the tiles, breathing through the burn in her chest. She could have explained, could have told them that the jacket was more than fabric, more than style. But some things aren't meant to be defended with words. Some things are sacred in their silence. The Army officer Command Sergeant Major Elijah Ward had come to the school that day for a Veterans Day assembly. He had expected the usual, polite applause, the awkward shuffle of teenagers unsure of what to say to a soldier. What he hadn't expected was to see that patch again. It wasn't just any insignia. It was the emblem of a special operations unit so elite that even within the military, few had the right to wear it. It was a brotherhood, marked not by ceremony, but by blood. Ward had served alongside Daniel Reyes in that very unit. The moment he saw it, the hallway around him seemed to fade. The polished floors, the chatter, the students all blurred into background noise. In his mind, he was back in a desert outpost, sand whipping against his skin, hearing Reyes' steady voice over the radio. And now, that same patch was resting on the chest of a girl who couldn't be more than 13. Emma noticed his stare and slowed her steps. Her first thought was that she was in trouble for breaking the dress code. She straightened, ready for the lecture. But the man didn't speak. Instead, he took a single step toward her, eyes never leaving the patch. The students around them shifted uncomfortably, their smirks faltering. Something in his expression, a mixture of shock, reverence, and something heavier, seemed to ripple through the air. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "Where did you get that jacket?" The question wasn't hostile. It was low, almost reverent, as if the answer carried weight. Emma swallowed. "It was my dad's." "Your father's name?" "Daniel Reyes." The officer's breath caught. For the briefest moment, his composure cracked, and in that fracture lived 1,000 memories, a man laughing under a moonlit sky in a foreign land. The crackle of a campfire, the last radio call before everything went silent. Without warning, Ward dropped to one knee in front of her. The hallway gasped. He didn't care. His head bowed, not to her, but to the memory sewn into the fabric between them. "Your father," he said quietly, "was one of the bravest men I ever served with. I owe him my life." Emma felt the sting in her eyes before she could blink it away. The hallway, moments ago, buzzing with derision, had gone utterly still. Students who had mocked her were now staring, wide-eyed, some looking away in shame. Ward rose slowly, his height towering but his voice soft. "No one touches this jacket. No one mocks it. Not while I'm here." And then, with a soldier's precision, he saluted her. For the first time that day, Emma lifted her chin fully. The officer turned to the students lining the hall. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "This patch," he said, resting a hand lightly over the emblem, "is earned in places most people will never see. It's carried by men and women who give up everything so others can wake up safe. This one was earned by a man who didn't come home, and now it belongs to his daughter. You don't mock that. You honor it." The words fell heavy, their truth undeniable. The students shifted, avoiding her gaze. One boy, the same who had muttered earlier, looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Before stepping aside, Ward left her with a sentence that would echo long after the day ended. "Some carry medals, some carry scars, and some carry both." Then, looking directly at the crowd, he added, "Respect isn't given because of age, rank, or size. It's given because of sacrifice, even when you can't see it." When Emma finally walked past him, the hallway was silent. No whispers, no laughter, only the sound of her own steady footsteps. And though her jacket still hung heavy on her shoulders, it felt lighter somehow. In the days that followed, something changed. Students who had ignored her now nodded in passing. A few apologized in awkward, halting words. The boy who had mocked her the loudest found her at lunch and placed a folded note on her tray. It read simply, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The jacket spoke for her now. 2 weeks later, Ward visited her home. He brought with him a small, weathered box. Inside were photos of her father in uniform, a unit coin, and a folded flag. "He would have wanted you to have these," Ward said. Emma traced the coin with her fingers, feeling the etched design. She imagined her father holding it, maybe even showing it to Ward in some distant desert. For the first time in years, the grief didn't feel like an open wound. It felt like a thread, tying her to something unbreakable. Months later, at the school's Memorial Day event, Ward returned. He spoke briefly, but when it came time to honor fallen soldiers, he called Emma to the stage. She wore the jacket again, not because she needed comfort that day, but because she was ready to carry the weight of what it meant. As the crowd rose in a standing ovation, she stood straight, her eyes steady. In the front row, Ward saluted. This time, she returned it. Some stories aren't loud. They don't shout to be heard. They're carried quietly in scars, in folded flags, in worn jackets that look old to anyone who doesn't understand. Respect isn't about knowing every story. It's about recognizing that some battles are fought far from your eyes, and some sacrifices are made without your consent. And sometimes, the smallest person in the room carries the greatest weight. Wherever you are watching from, remember this: if you don't know what someone carries, tread gently. You might be standing in the presence of a hero's legacy,